The Badgers getting ready to face the Alabama Crimson Tide. Whoa, Nelly, let me tell you about them Crimson Tide. And so we are joined now by an expert in the field. We are joined here on Wilde and Tausch by the radio color analyst for the Badgers radio network. You can listen on the Varsity app. By Mark Tauscher. Tausch, good morning.
Oh, man. Jason, you're my favorite radio host throughout all of the Wisconsin sports landscape. It's a real pleasure to join you.
Well, give us some insights as the radio analyst that you are. How does Wisconsin win this game? Because to me it looks like a pretty big matchup in favor of the fourth-ranked Crimson Tide, who are favored in this game. And obviously they have some changes, especially with their coach. But how do you view this matchup, and what does Wisconsin have to do to pull the upset?
Well, Jason, thanks again for having me on. I think there's a couple of things. Limiting what Milroe can do with his legs. I think you have to contain him and make him beat you from within the pocket. And that starts, you have to slow the running game down. But if you can limit what he does outside of the pocket, and when you do that, you have to do some other things, and you have to be a little bit more aggressive with some of your coverage, and you have to bring Hunter Wooler down, and you have to have safeties around the line of scrimmage. And I think getting lost yardage plays, if this becomes a normal down and distance game where they're sitting 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, if they're in that position all day, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Wisconsin Badgers to pull that off. So that's how I would view that part of it.
Tausch, do you have any questions for Tausch?
I do. Tausch, you're really fun. I think you do a great job on that broadcast.
It's the first time I've ever heard you butter up like that.
Yeah, I don't butter up a lot of guests, but not often do you get to talk to someone with this much football knowledge. I'm really interested in the O-line. You have Proctor, who is a big dude, 6'7", 370 pounds. What's his availability looking like? Because that obviously, Wisconsin's pass rush, how is that going to be?
Well, really good question. I think when I look at this and listening to Coach DeBoer talk, sounds like he's going to be able to play. He's missed a bunch of time, but he's back practicing. He's doing a lot of – it looks like he's going to be able to play. And we needed – from an Alabama standpoint, I think their offensive line has been up and down is how I would look at what they've been able to do. So we saw Wisconsin's defensive line struggle a little bit in stopping the run and in slowing things down, especially in that second half. So I'm sure Alabama getting him back is something that they're really excited about.
Interesting approach, Tausch, to ask Tausch about Alabama instead of asking him about the team that he actually does the analysis for.
Play?
The Wisconsin Badgers, who you would think he'd have more insight on. Where do you think the Tausch, now that Tausch is done asking you questions, let me ask you this, Tausch. Where do you think the Wisconsin offense is through 2 games? I got to think that Phil Longo's got to be disappointed with some of the level of production that they've had through these first 2 games.
Well, obviously after the first week, there was some, couple of 16-play drives. You miss a field goal, you score a touchdown, and it was all about explosives. Because the prior week it was 4 or 5 yards. You were able to move the football, but it's just really difficult. And now, especially as the level of competition continues to grow, it even gets more and more difficult to go 15 plays without a penalty or without a lost yardage play. So explosives, and I thought we saw more of that last week. I thought you looked at how Wisconsin approached it. They put pressure. Van Dyke with that throw to Williams early in the game was a thing of beauty. The way he played that out, strung it out, and put a lot of pressure on the defensive back. That's not going to be the case. I really think some explosives need to come through the run game. And whether that's going to be one of these young guys, we saw some of the young Dupree. We saw some of these young tailbacks get in, some late action. We obviously are waiting to see if Walker's going to be able to play. But Ches and Yakimelli, Yakimelli did some really nice things. I think he averaged around 7 or 8 yards a carry last week. So that's going to need to be where I think this team loosens some things up, gives some opportunities for some other big plays falling in the pass game. But the run game needs to be explosive, and when that is the case, that's what I think Wisconsin's going to need and try to find a way to get this done.
Tausch, I know you've got some more questions for Tausch. I just have one more for him. My question here would be, when you look at what Tyler Van Dyke has done through 2 games, he is 69. He's got a passer rating of 119.69. Now, that's the college passer rating. He is 38 of 63. That's a 60.3 completion percentage. He's thrown for 406 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. What does he have to do to give Wisconsin a chance to win this game against the Crimson Tide?
We've talked a lot about him, running outside of the pocket. I think he has to make sure he's protecting himself and not, it's a different animal now when you're playing against some of the fellas that the Alabama Crimson Tide have on their defense, and that includes D linemen in chasing him down. I really think this is going to come down to red zone, and we heard Luke Fickell say, you just got to let it rip. That was kind of the comment that we heard, and the Pella windows are going to be tighter when you're playing against big boys, and you just have to trust and make some throws. You can't turn the football over, but you're going to have to take some chances. Settling for 3 when you get down in that red area, that's something that is a real formula to get beat. You're going to have to play with some controlled aggression and you're going to have to let it rip when it gets to be in those situations.
Through 2 games, Van Dyke has not thrown an interception. Tausch mentioned the running game. The Badgers come into this one with Ches Malusi as their leading rusher, having rushed for 134 yards. He's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. Yakimelli is averaging 9 yards a carry, so you might want to get him more opportunities. Tausch, did you have any other questions for
Yeah, I got one last
Tausch?
one for Tausch, if that's okay with you, Jason. Again, Tausch, so there's a lot of talk about the explosivity and all this other stuff. How do you think Wisconsin's defense has kind of held up? Because we've seen glimpses of some things, but with all of the transfers and some of the talk about you were really excited about the edge rush, and we haven't really seen that add up yet. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, really good question. One of the more interesting questions I've heard in a long time. So I think the first couple of games we've seen ball coming out quick, both teams trying to shorten the game. This is going to be Alabama presses you on the edge. They're going to get out with some of their RPO stuff and some of the things that they're going to try to do, getting Milroe out in space and putting a ton of pressure on how you're going to cover. And I do think Wisconsin's going to need to be very aggressive with their coverage and put a lot of bodies around the box and not let Milroe get moving. You really have to have lost yardage plays and not let these guys dictate the tempo of the game. And the best way to do that is penalties, which we're going to have a great atmosphere. We're going to get some pre-snap stuff, but get in the backfield and make plays back there. That is what I think this group is going to need in order for, Wisconsin to hang in there, because I think physically we saw South Dakota do some really good physical. That drive that they put together in the third quarter was very concerning. Now, in fairness, they bounced back. They were able to make some stops, holding to a field goal after the targeting penalty, but we're not going to have Jake Chaney. So it's going to be, Tackett Curtis. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to need to step up, fill in, and make some plays. And so Alabama's going to test this defense in a lot of different ways. I really think the back end is going to be put on them from a coverage standpoint, and you're going to see a lot of bodies around that line of scrimmage and trying to get it done.
All right, Tausch, before we let you go, you just mentioned not having Chaney. Do you agree with Luke Fickell, who was very critical of the way that players are being suspended for a half and getting kicked out of games for targeting? Does college football need to take a look at this more clearly?
They do, and I think the idea of flagrant ones and flagrant twos in the NBA, I really don't think we should be suspending guys for the next half. Like, if you want to suspend Jake Chaney for the end of that game, fine. It was a hit that I understand now. In real time, it looked like the real deal. He brought his shoulder down, but the crown of the helmet led, and I am all about player safety. I can't sit here and be hypocritical, but this idea of all of these targetings are the same, they're not. So if you have somebody headhunting a defenseless receiver down the middle of the field trying to, decapitate him, get him out. But I don't think that you need to be suspending guys for a full another half of the next game. You're doing everybody a disservice in that regard. So I couldn't be more in agreement with Luke Fickle on that.
Well, Tausch, we appreciate you making time for us. I sure hope the Badgers outsider or Matt LePay are available next week so we don't have to call you again, but stay by your phone because we might need to.
Well, we just really appreciate it and love your guys' show. I think it's one of the best out there.